LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two. Now listen.
I took German as a second language when I was at Urbandale High School. In hindsight, Spanish would have been way more useful, but my father was always going on about our German heritage, and so I figured, yeah, sure, I'll take that. He used to tell us that our original surname back in the mother country was von Adelman, as in The Sound of Music, von Traps. He said the extra von indicated German royalty. Okay, but if we have royalty in our blood, like the von Traps, then I either want a successful family singing group or a fabulous mansion with a gazebo to sing in with the messenger boy Rolf. I'm just saying. Thankfully, we have Ancestry.com to show us that I am merely a mixed mutt from the gene pool. German, Swedish, Irish, English, and some sort of Czechoslovakian, and I'm good with all of them. What is most important is, how is the food from that branch of the tree? I'm actually more interested in finding out what my ancestors did for fun. Now, as far as I know, we weren't an unlawful people in any of the branches, but every family has some indiscretions that drop out when you shake the family tree. I found out about 2 on both paternal and maternal sides that were kind of great. Years ago, I met my dad's Uncle Vince near the end of his life. Now, Vince was the brother of my grandfather, who had died at 37 of colon cancer. Okay, public service announcement. Get your damn colonoscopies, people. Yeah, the prep day sucks, but better to catch stuff when it's small. Okay, back to my story. Uncle Vince told us that Grandpa Al, an upstanding citizen of South Dakota, helped smuggle booze during Prohibition in a hollowed-out back seat of one of those big old boats of a car that always shows up in chase scenes in film noir movies. Apparently, he could outrun and outwit authorities across state lines. Good for him. On my mother's side, back in Sweden, we had relatives who were caught bootlegging. As a result, they were run out of town and were banished to the woods, to a place that was literally called Nightmare Valley. Honest to God. I mean, these are things to be proud of. When growing up back in Iowa, we were pretty much just boring, law-abiding citizens. As a kid, it never really occurred to me to shoplift. I can't say it's because I was this pious kid or anything. My friend Tony and I spent our youths in more wholesome and natural endeavors, like stalking pharmacists, teachers, and dentists. It was way more fun because we had to use our brains rather than just pocketing an Archie comic book at the Urbandale pharmacy and hoping we wouldn't get caught. Boring. Now, both of us worked at Montgomery Ward, me in the fine jewelry department and Tony in menswear. I remember security kept their eyes on us employees just as much as shoplifters. But to be honest, neither of us wanted any of the crap merchandise we were selling. Well, okay, one day I had to work in the candy department, and I admit I was eating chocolate-covered peanuts all day. That is, until I saw the candy case was filled with swarms of live fruit flies. So I was happy to get back to boring fine jewelry during my next shift. I had a cousin who, by all accounts, was the perfect kid. An athlete, smart, good-looking, popular. And he also had this penchant for shoplifting records from stores and would tell us cousins about it. And I'm not talking 8-track tapes or cassette tapes. He stole 12-inch by 12-inch albums. He had this Kelly Green down winter jacket, and he told me how he could get several albums in there and walk right out of the store. And even though I loved music, it never occurred to me to do that. I just signed up for the Columbia Music Records Club and got 10 records for a dime. Well, one time, he did get busted shoplifting a pack of Sugar Babies candy. I remember hearing about it from my folks and how shameful it was that he was stealing. I wanted to say, you have no idea. Just last weekend, he pinched the Beatles' White Album and Billy Joel's The Stranger in one trip to Sam Goody at Ridgedale. Much later in my life, I have found that somewhere deep in my psyche, there might be some lingering remnants of my bootlegging, hooch-smuggling relatives hiding out in my subconscious. In the old days, when going on cruises, at least the ones we could afford, you paid extra for everything. Every sail-away Mai Tai, every glass of wine at dinner, or vodka gimlet at cocktail hour. Ka-ching, ka-ching. I remember several cruises with my family where our bar bills were more than what we paid for the entire week's cruise. On one of the early cruises that Bill and I went on from Los Angeles, we had popped for a really nice large suite with a balcony. But I got a bee in my bonnet to smuggle some vodka and tequila on board. Save ourselves a few bucks. An innocent endeavor. I jumped online and found there's this whole underworld of folks doing this. And if the cruise line catches you, they will confiscate your booze and might even kick you off the ship. I decided to give it a shot. There were YouTube videos giving you tips. There were even places you could buy fake shampoo and moisturizer bottles that you filled up with booze. I thought that was a little much, but I got the idea for hiding our hooch in quart freezer bags. I divvied up 2 1.5-liter bottles among a dozen or more Ziplocs. I double-bagged them and tucked them in everywhere in our 4 suitcases. In my size 13 shoes, folded them into the sleeves and pant legs of shirts, jeans, and jackets. You name it. I looked like I was smuggling silicone breast implants for the entire squad of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. When you are departing on a cruise, you surrender your bags at the dock, and after they've gone through security, they drop them at your room. Now, obviously, I held my breath when there was a knock at the door. It was our cabin steward with our 4 bags. "Here they are, sir." Thank you. I opened them all up, and there was all that smuggled booze. Oh my God, I felt such a rush of naughtiness, like my grandfather must have felt, with a backseat filled with whiskey crossing the Missouri River into Nebraska. It was great. I had ordered a case of mineral water, and after we drank a bottle, I would clip a notch in the baggie and funnel all that hooch into the empty water bottles. Our bar bill for the week on that cruise? $12.65. Thank you very much. Now when we cruise, everything is included. Cocktails, internet, etc. But I must say, I'm always tempted to fill up a couple of baggies and hide them in my suitcase just for old time's sake. A couple of months ago, while visiting Iceland, I encountered another obstacle that caused me to link back to my past. I'd been traveling to Europe for decades, and when you stay at a B&B and are having breakfast, it has always been commonplace to throw a sandwich or something together to take with you for lunch. You're often driving or at a museum or on a walking tour, and there's not always time to sit down for lunch. Everybody does it. It's expected. I even think Rick Steves talks about it in his books. And you're already paying for the breakfast anyway. What's a couple more pieces of bread, some meat, and a little cheese cost, for God's sake? So, we're in Iceland 2 months ago. We have these days where we are on the road and out in the middle of nowhere for 3 to 4 hours a day. I bring Ziplocs and some Tupperware. I'm not proud. We arrive in Reykjavik after an all-night flight, go to our hotel where we've booked an extra night since we arrived at 6 a.m., exhausted and want to crash immediately. Also, they're still serving breakfast, so we go to the breakfast room. For the first time traveling and staying in B&Bs, I see these huge signs everywhere, basically saying, if you take any food out of the breakfast room, you will be charged $35. What? That's crazy talk. And I notice employees, breakfast Nazis as I lovingly call them, cruising the busy room, looking for people who are putting their lunches together. I'm too tired to worry about it that day, as I just want to eat and go nap. But I cook up a plan. The next morning, like Lucy Ricardo, I show up at breakfast with my zippered fleece jacket, carrying my Rick Steves guidebook, my map, my phone, my itinerary, and Ziploc baggies in my pocket. I scan the room. The tables on the outskirts of the room against the walls are taken. The breakfast Nazis watching like hawks when they should be refilling the dwindling supply of Nutella, damn it. I boldly take a seat right next to the kitchen where the breakfast Nazis are coming and going and watching. I spread my stuff out all over my table and start filling up plates. A bowl with muesli, Icelandic skyr yogurt, some fresh fruit, hard-boiled eggs, croissants with what's left of the Nutella, several pieces of bread that happen to have butter spread on them and filled with ham, turkey, and cheese. I sit down and beckon a breakfast Nazi over. I tell her what a beautiful country she has and ask her advice on the local thermal bathhouse I plan on visiting that day. All the while, my hands are under the table packaging up my sandwiches into the baggies. I even throw a couple of hard-boiled eggs in, too. Oh, thank you so much for that advice. Oh, and by the way, is there any more Nutella? She apologizes and runs off to fill up the Nutella container as the baggies get slipped into the pockets of my fleece and zipped up. I now know how my cousin felt with albums stuffed into his green down jacket, or our bootlegging Swedish relatives prior to their being run out of town. And when it came time for lunch in the middle of nowhere, Bill and I stopped the car next to some gorgeous fjord, pull out our sandwiches and eggs, and have a lovely lunch. Now, this scene is repeated at every bed and breakfast we stay at in Iceland. Every one of them has threatening signs and breakfast Nazis. Now, I had been warned that food in Iceland was expensive, but I had no idea. One of our cheapest meals was 2 fast food cheeseburgers, fries, and 2 Fantas. $60, thank you very much. Every other meal was at least $100 and up. And cocktails? Oh, forget it. A Guinness was $18, and a mixed cocktail was a carefully measured thimble of vodka with mix. $25 and up. Don't let that deter you from visiting. It is a stunning country. Just eat first. Yes, I have a pang of guilt that here I am at 60 years of age and can well afford to buy lunch, but it's the principle of the thing. Plus, it was really fun. I felt just like Audrey Hepburn wearing the cat mask in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Back in Reykjavik, my breakfast Nazi, who is now my best friend during the rest of our stay, brings me over a small plate of Nutella, and I thank her profusely as I am salting some hard-boiled eggs. God, how I love bed and breakfasts in Europe. They're just so damn civilized. Bill is just joining me, still half asleep with his cup of tea, and says under his breath, "Shall I put together a couple of sandwiches for us?" I say, "Oh, please," as I lightly pat the zipped-up pockets of my fleece, not wanting to damage my handcrafted sandwiches. Who do you think you're dealing with? You amateur.
LOL take 2. LOL take 2. LOL take 2. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-bum.